Chosen one. Have you been lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if God has forgotten your address? Have you watched door after door slam in your face while others seem to glide through life effortlessly? Have you whispered into the darkness, "God, did I miss my moment?" Stop right there. What if I told you that every rejection, every delay, every night you cried yourself to sleep thinking you were abandoned? What if all of that was actually heaven's way of protecting you until the 11th of August? Somewhere in the archives of eternity, the 11th of August has been circled in red ink for decades, waiting for your name to walk through it. Picture this: a massive golden door standing in a dark hallway, light pouring from its edges like liquid fire. That door has your fingerprints on the handle. It's been there all along, waiting for this exact moment when your faith would finally align with heaven's timing. I need you to listen carefully, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. You weren't delayed, you were preserved. You weren't forgotten, you were hidden. And the 11th of August? That's the day heaven stops whispering and starts thundering over your life. If something in your chest is stirring right now, if your spirit is recognizing truth before your mind can catch up, type 888 the comments below. That's not superstition. That's alignment. That's you telling the universe, I'm ready to stop surviving and start thriving. Before we dive deeper into this mystery, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But here's the shocking truth that religious leaders won't tell you. There are dates written in heaven's calendar that carry more weight than others. Dates that hold the power to rewrite your entire story in a single moment. The 11th of August is one of those dates. And by the time this message ends, you'll understand exactly why your entire life's journey, every tear, every triumph, every moment you felt invisible, has been building to this singular day. Missing this moment could delay a destiny that's been decades in the making. But catching it changes everything. This isn't just another motivational message you stumbled across while scrolling through YouTube. This is your divine appointment. This is heaven intercepting your timeline, because what's about to be released through you is too powerful to remain hidden any longer. Chosen one. The 11th of August is your turning point. And if you don't step through this door when it opens, you may spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been. Why does it feel like you've been living in a waiting room for the last 20 years? Why have you watched younger generations leap into opportunities while you've been told to step aside, settle down, fade quietly into the background? Why does every door that opens for others seem to have your name crossed out in permanent ink? Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will demolish every lie the enemy has whispered about your expiration date. You see, there's something the world doesn't understand about God's timing, and something the church has forgotten to teach. The Almighty doesn't operate on human schedules. He doesn't consult retirement calendars or social security charts before he moves. When heaven decides it's time for your breakthrough, your age becomes irrelevant, your past becomes prologue, and your future becomes unstoppable. Think about this. Moses was 80 years old when God called him from that burning bush. 80. The world would have put him in a nursing home, but God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin your real work." Abraham was 99 when God promised him nations would come from his bloodline. Sarah laughed at 90 because she thought her season of fruitfulness had passed, but God was just getting started. Here's what's shaking me to my core right now. Every single biblical breakthrough happened when people least expected it. The Israelites had been slaves in Egypt for 400 years. 4 centuries of bondage, of broken promises, of wondering if God had forgotten them. But on one appointed night, Passover night, everything changed in a single moment. Not gradually, Not eventually, instantly. David was just a shepherd boy when Samuel showed up looking for Israel's next king. His own father forgot to call him in from the fields. But God had already marked that day, that hour, that divine appointment when a teenager would be anointed to defeat giants and establish an eternal kingdom. And Pentecost, 120 discouraged disciples hiding in an upper room, wondering if Jesus had really meant what he said about sending power from on high. Then suddenly, Acts 2:2 tells us, suddenly there came a sound from heaven like a rushing mighty wind. Suddenly, not gradually, not after years of preparation. Suddenly. You've been through seasons where doors slammed shut, haven't you? Jobs lost when you needed them most. Friends who disappeared when life got complicated. Health that betrayed you when you thought you were invincible. Children who moved away and rarely call. Spouses who went home to glory, leaving you alone in houses too quiet, too empty, too full of memories. But what if I told you those weren't endings? What if every door that closed was actually God's way of saving you from settling for less than His best? What if every loss was really strategic positioning? What if every season of waiting was heaven's way of preparing you for the 11th of August? You see, God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't squander seasons. Every tear you've cried in secret, every night you've lain awake wondering if anyone remembers your name, every moment you've felt invisible, it's all been building toward something. Toward this moment. Toward this date that heaven circled before you were born. I can see you right now, sitting at your kitchen table, staring at unopened letters, wondering if the call will ever come. Wondering if your best days are truly behind you. Wondering if you missed your moment because you were too busy raising children, caring for aging parents, building careers that never quite satisfied the ache in your soul. But here's the truth that will set you free. You weren't late. You were being prepared. Every detour was divine direction. Every delay was divine choreography. Every disappointment was God's way of saying, not yet. The timing isn't right. But when it is, when the 11th of August arrives, you'll be ready for what I've been building in secret. The prophet Isaiah declared, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Right now, heaven's pen is writing your name on an envelope marked urgent. Angels are positioning themselves around your situation. Divine appointments are being scheduled, supernatural doors are creaking open, and every force of hell that tried to convince you that you're finished, forgotten, filed away in some cosmic attic, they're about to be proven catastrophically wrong. This isn't wishful thinking. This isn't positive psychology. This is prophetic declaration based on the unchanging Word of God. He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. And completion doesn't have an age limit. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. There are divine windows that open and close. Moments when heaven says, now, and if you miss them, you might wait years for another opportunity. Seasons when the spiritual atmosphere is pregnant with possibility, and those who recognize the moment step into miracles while others remain in mediocrity. The 11th of August is one of those moments. A convergence of divine timing and human readiness. A day when what has been promised finally becomes what is delivered. But will you be ready? Will you recognize it when it comes? Or will you let fear, doubt, and the lies of the enemy convince you to stay small when God is calling you to rise? If you refuse to miss another divine window, if something in your spirit is stirring right now, recognizing that this word is for you, type, "I'm ready" in the comments below. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly why your entire life journey has been leading to this singular moment. Listen to me, chosen one. There's a story buried in the dusty pages of Genesis that holds the key to understanding why the 11th of August has been marked in heaven's calendar with your name written beside it. Joseph, 30 years old, sitting in an Egyptian dungeon, forgotten by everyone who once promised to remember him. For 13 years, 13 long, brutal years, He'd been carrying dreams that seemed to mock him every single morning. Dreams of rulership while he rotted in chains. Visions of authority while he scraped mold off prison walls. Picture this moment with me. It's an ordinary Tuesday morning in that dungeon. Joseph wakes up to the same stone walls, the same iron bars, the same crushing weight of wondering if God had played some cosmic joke on his life. His brothers had betrayed him. Potiphar's wife had destroyed his reputation with lies. The cupbearer had forgotten his promise to speak on Joseph's behalf. 13 years of silence from heaven. But then, footsteps in the hallway. Not the usual shuffle of guards bringing stale bread. These footsteps had urgency, purpose, authority. The sound of chains falling from his wrists echoed through corridors that had heard nothing but despair for over a decade. The rush of palace air hit his face, air he hadn't breathed since he was 17 years old. In one morning, everything changed. Genesis 41-14 tells us, "Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the pit." Hastily. That word should shake something loose in your spirit right now. When God decides it's time, he doesn't move slowly. He moves hastily, urgently, with the kind of speed that makes up for years of waiting in a single afternoon. Joseph walked into that throne room carrying 13 years of betrayal in his bones, 13 years of wondering if his dreams were delusions, 13 years of questioning if God's voice had been his imagination all along. But by sunset that same day, Pharaoh was placing his signet ring on Joseph's finger and declaring, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." One conversation, one moment of divine alignment, one door that had been locked for over a decade, suddenly swinging wide open. But here's what haunts me about this story, dear one. What if Joseph had given up in year 12? What if he'd stopped believing in his dreams during year 10? What if he'd let the bitterness of betrayal poison his heart in year 8? You see, Joseph didn't know that morning would end with him holding Egypt's keys. He had no idea that his 13-year night was about to become his lifetime day. He simply got up, washed his face, and made himself available to whatever God might do. How many of you are sitting in your own prison right now? How many of you have been carrying dreams that feel dead? How many of you have whispered the same prayer for so many years that your knees have worn grooves in the floor beside your bed? You think you've been forgotten. You think your moment passed. You think God moved on to someone younger, someone less damaged, someone who didn't make the mistakes you made. That's exactly what the enemy wants you to believe. Because he knows something about you, the 11th of August, that he's desperately trying to keep from you. Your life has been a hallway of closed doors, hasn't it? Some rotted shut from disappointment, others slammed by people who couldn't see your worth, a few locked by your own fear and self-doubt. But there's one door at the end of that hallway that's different from all the rest. It's gilded, it's heaven-forged, and it has your name carved into its frame. Every rejection you faced was redirecting you toward this door. Every delay was positioning you for this moment. Every tear you've cried was watering the ground for this breakthrough. But here's what terrifies me for you, chosen one. What if the 11th of August comes and goes and you're not ready? What if you're so focused on the closed doors behind you that you miss the golden one opening in front of you? Joseph was ready because he'd learned something in that dungeon that prosperity never could have taught him. He'd learned to trust God's timing even when it didn't make sense. He'd learned to maintain his character even when circumstances tried to corrupt it. He'd learned that delay doesn't mean denial. The pain you've endured hasn't disqualified you, it's prepared you. The betrayals you've survived haven't broken you, they've built your discernment. The years you've spent waiting haven't been wasted, they've been your divine education. The 11th of August is your Pharaoh's summons. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you be ready when the door swings? Because I'm telling you right now, based on the authority of God's word and the pattern I see in your life, something is stirring in the spiritual realm. The same power that moved Pharaoh's heart to call for Joseph is moving on your behalf. The same urgency that brought Joseph hastily out of the pit is being released over your situation. But you can't wait for the 11th of August with yesterday's mindset. You can't step through tomorrow's door carrying today's doubts. The door is creaking open, chosen one. The question is, are you ready to walk through it? Listen to me, chosen one. I'm about to share something with you that will make your spirit tremble with recognition. Because what happened to Nelson Mandela on Robben Island wasn't just history, it was prophecy in motion. And what's about to happen to you on the 11th of August follows the exact same divine blueprint. Picture this. A 6-year-old man thrown into a limestone quarry prison cell, 8 feet by 7 feet, 27 years. 27 years of breaking rocks under the scorching South African sun, 27 years of letters that never came, 27 years of wondering if God had forgotten his name. But here's what the history books won't tell you. Mandela wasn't just serving time. Time was serving him. Every year of confinement was forging the character he'd need to heal a nation. Every day of silence was building the wisdom to speak peace into chaos. Every moment of isolation was preparing him for global influence. Does that sound familiar? Have you been living in your own prison of waiting, your own cell of unanswered prayers? Right now, there's a 73-year-old grandmother in Mississippi named Dorothy who's been praying for her grandson's salvation for 18 years. 18 years. Every Sunday, same pew, same prayer, same tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Her church friends whisper, "Maybe it's time to let go, Dorothy." But last month, that grandson walked into her kitchen, fell to his knees and said, "Grandma, I need Jesus." 18 years of silent intercession exploded into one moment of divine intervention. But here's where it gets personal for you, dear one. Here's where your pain meets purpose. How many of you right now are carrying prayers that are old enough to vote? Prayers that have birthdays. Prayers that have watched you age while they remained unanswered. You've whispered them so many times they feel worn out, don't they? Like old coins rubbed smooth by desperate fingers. I'm talking to the 8-year-old man in Detroit who's been praying for his prodigal daughter for 23 years. I'm talking to the 2-year-old widow in Phoenix who's been asking God to heal her broken family for 3 decades. I'm talking to every senior saint who's wondered if their prayers are bouncing off heaven's ceiling like rubber balls in an empty gym. Stop, right there. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." But here's what most preachers won't tell you. Some seasons are longer than others because some purposes are bigger than others. The delay wasn't denial. The silence wasn't abandonment. The waiting wasn't wasted time. You were being prepared for something so magnificent that if it had come any sooner, it would have destroyed you instead of delivered you. Think about Abraham. 25 years between the promise and Isaac's birth. 25 years. Sarah laughed at God because the promise seemed ridiculous at her age. But Genesis 21:6 records her joy. "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." The laughter of fulfillment sounds different than the laughter of doubt, doesn't it? But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. What if your longest prayer, your most painful wait, your most desperate cry to heaven, what if it's about to be answered on the 11th of August? What if every day you felt forgotten was actually a day you were being remembered? What if every night you cried yourself to sleep was actually a night heaven was working overtime on your behalf? I need you to understand something that will shake your spiritual foundation. God doesn't operate on American time. He doesn't punch a time clock. He doesn't work 9 to 5 shifts. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways." Your timeline and heaven's timeline don't match. And thank God they don't. Because if God worked on your schedule, you would have received what you wanted when you weren't ready to handle what you needed. Here's what I want you to do right now. In the comments below, I want you to share your longest wait for answered prayer. Not to complain, to testify, not to doubt, to declare. Because when you speak your wait out loud, you're not just sharing a story. You're creating a wave of testimony that will crash over someone else's despair and pull them back to shore. Type it now. I've been waiting ____ years for ______. Let your patience become someone else's hope. Let your endurance become their encouragement. Because here's the mystery I'm about to unveil. There's something I call the August one principle, and it's been operating in biblical history for millennia. It's a prophetic pattern that explains why your breakthrough has been delayed until now. And when I reveal this pattern in just a few moments, you're going to understand why every day of waiting has been building toward this singular moment. Your prison sentence is about to become your presidential inauguration. Your season of silence is about to explode into your season of speaking. Your time of hiddenness is about to transform into your hour of influence. But first, you need to understand something that will change how you see every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt invisible. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That restlessness that keeps you awake at night, that stirring in your chest that you can't quite name. You've tried to brush it off as stress, as age, as worry about bills or grandchildren. But deep in your spirit, you know this is different. This isn't anxiety, this is holy anticipation. Your soul is responding to something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Like a tuning fork struck in heaven, vibrating through your very bones, calling you toward the 11th of August. You thought you were losing your peace, but you're actually gaining your purpose. The prophet Habakkuk cried out, "How long, Lord, must I call for help?" But then God answered, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time." An appointed time, beloved. Not your time, God's time. And that appointed time is rushing toward you like a freight train. Can you hear it? The tracks are clicking faster now. The rhythm is changing. You're being carried toward a station you never planned to visit, but one that's been waiting for your arrival since before you took your first breath. I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. When destiny doors are about to open, the spiritual realm gets noisy, real noisy. The enemy starts throwing everything he's got at you because he knows what's coming. But God starts aligning things that have been out of place for years. Have you noticed the second sign? The strange alignments happening around you. That phone call from someone you hadn't heard from in 5 years. That letter in the mail about something you'd completely forgotten. That opportunity that suddenly resurfaced after months of silence. These aren't coincidences, dear one. These are confirmations. Heaven is moving chess pieces on a board you can't even see. Joseph understood this. Genesis 41-32 tells us, "The matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon." Soon. Not eventually. Not someday. Soon. The doubling of Pharaoh's dream meant God wasn't just planning, he was accelerating. You've been wondering why promises that seemed dead are suddenly showing signs of life. You've been questioning why doors that were bolted shut are creaking open. Stop questioning and start receiving. God doesn't resurrect dreams for entertainment. He resurrects them for appointments. But here's where it gets intense, and I need your full attention. The third sign will either terrify you or liberate you, depending on how you respond to it. You're experiencing a supernatural stripping away, a tightening of focus so intense it feels almost violent. Relationships that once consumed your thoughts, you barely think about them anymore. Worries that used to keep you up at night, they're fading into background noise. Distractions that used to scatter your attention, they're losing their power over you. You're not becoming cold or disconnected. You're becoming consecrated. David knew this feeling. Psalm 27:4 captures it perfectly. "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. One thing, not 10 things, not 100 things, one thing. When God is about to do something extraordinary in your life, He strips away everything that would compete with it. Every distraction, every false priority, every relationship that would drain your energy from your divine assignment. This isn't punishment, beloved. This is preparation. You might feel isolated right now. You might feel like you're losing connections, losing interests, losing pieces of yourself. But what if I told you that what feels like loss is actually refinement? What if what feels like emptiness is actually God making room? The train is pulling into the station, and you can feel it in your bones. That low rumble, that increasing intensity. But here's what terrifies most people about destiny trains. They look different than you expected. You thought your breakthrough would look like comfort, but it looks like courage. You thought it would feel like relief, but it feels like responsibility. You thought it would bring ease, but it's bringing assignment. This is why so many chosen ones miss their moment. They're looking for a luxury liner when God sends a rescue vessel. They're expecting a gentle invitation when heaven delivers a divine disruption. But you're different, aren't you? You've been prepared for this. Every tear you've cried, every disappointment you've endured, every night you wondered if God had forgotten you, it was all building your capacity to handle what's coming on the 11th of August. The conductor never leaves without the chosen passenger. Never. But he also doesn't wait forever for you to decide if you want to board. Jeremiah 29:11 promises, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." But notice what comes next in verse 12. "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you." Then, after you recognize the signs, after you acknowledge the season, after you stop resisting what God is orchestrating, your spirit is restless because it recognizes what your mind is still processing. The strange alignments are accelerating because divine timing waits for no one. The stripping away is intensifying because the 11th of August requires your complete attention. If you're feeling this, if these words are hitting places in your soul that you thought were sealed off, share this message. Don't keep this to yourself. It may be the confirmation someone else's soul is desperate for. Their destiny door might be connected to your obedience to speak. But here's the question that will determine everything. When that door swings open on the 11th of August, will you step through it, or will you let fear convince you to stay on the platform? Because what's waiting on the other side isn't just breakthrough, it's the version of yourself you were created to be before the world told you who you should become. Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal to you has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Once you understand the 11th of August principle, every delay in your life will suddenly make perfect sense. You see, God doesn't work in random patterns. He operates in divine mathematics, sacred sequences, holy rhythms that echo through eternity. And the 11th of August sits at the intersection of the most powerful spiritual frequencies known to heaven. Let me show you something that will blow your mind. In the Hebrew calendar, the number 11 represents disorder transitioning into divine order, chaos surrendering to purpose. And August, the 8th month. In biblical numerology, 8 is the number of new beginnings. Resurrection, the day after 7 days of completion. Do you see what's happening here? The 11th of August is literally encoded with the DNA of breakthrough. It's the cosmic signature of God saying, what was broken is now being rebuilt. But here's where it gets supernatural. Throughout Scripture, God has used this exact pattern to deliver his people. Moses led Israel out of Egypt on the 11th day of the first month. David was anointed king at age 11. Jesus called his 11th disciple, Matthias, to complete the circle after Judas fell. Every single time God needed to shift someone from survival to victory, from wilderness to promised land, this sacred number appeared like heaven's fingerprint on human history. And you, precious soul, You've been walking in your own wilderness, haven't you? How many years now? How many decades have you been circling the same mountain, facing the same battles, crying the same tears? The enemy convinced you that your season had passed, that your breakthrough window had closed, that at your age, God's greatest moves were reserved for someone younger, someone more qualified, someone who hadn't made the mistakes you've made. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Listen to me carefully. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to the burning bush. 80. Most people your age are thinking about retirement homes, but Moses was getting his assignment for the greatest liberation in human history. Why? Because God needed someone who had been through enough disappointment to handle the weight of miracle without letting it go to their head. That's you. That's exactly you. Every closed door taught you humility. Every rejection built your character. Every night you cried yourself to sleep wondering if God had forgotten you. You were actually being prepared for a breakthrough so massive that if it had come any earlier, you wouldn't have been ready to steward it. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. God hides his greatest breakthroughs in what looks absolutely ordinary. A burning bush in the middle of nowhere. A baby born in a stable. A carpenter from Nazareth. A grandmother in Queens who's been praying for 30 years for her prodigal grandson to come home. The enemy expects God to show up in spectacular fashion. But heaven operates in stealth mode, divine ambush, sacred surprise. And the 11th of August, that's just another Tuesday on your calendar. But in the realm of the Spirit, it's the day marked with golden ink. The day the Red Sea parts. You've been praying for the Red Sea to part, haven't you? You've been standing on the shore of impossibility, looking at walls of water that seem too high, too wide, too deep to ever move. Your finances, your health, your family situation, your dreams that seemed to die 20 years ago. Mountains of circumstances that mock your faith every single morning when you open your eyes. But the 11th of August, the waters will split. The path will appear. Can you feel it? Can you sense something shifting in the atmosphere around your life? That restlessness in your spirit isn't anxiety, that's anticipation. Your soul recognizing what your mind hasn't seen yet. You're standing at the edge of your own Red Sea moment, and the wind is starting to blow. Picture this with me. Moses stretching his staff over those impossible waters. The same waters that had trapped Israel for generations. The same barrier that seemed permanent, immovable, final. But when divine timing collided with human obedience, the impossible became inevitable. The water didn't just ripple, it didn't just part slowly. It stood up like walls of glass, creating a highway through what used to be hopeless. That highway has your name on it. That path through the impossible has been under construction in the spirit realm for decades. Every prayer you've whispered, every tear you've shed, every time you chose faith over fear, when logic screamed at you to give up, it's all been building the foundation for this moment when heaven says, "Now, walk through. Your Red Sea season is over." But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. Red Sea moments don't last forever. Moses couldn't camp out in the middle of those parted waters. The people had to move. They had to trust. They had to step forward, even when they could see those walls of water towering above them on both sides. Your window is opening on the 11th of August, but windows close. Divine opportunities have expiration dates. And if you hesitate, if you let fear convince you to stay on the familiar shore of your struggles, those waters will return to their normal flow, and you'll be left wondering what could have been. Why do you think this message found you today? Why do you think your spirit is stirring as I speak these words? Because heaven is preparing you for the most significant breakthrough of your entire life. But preparation without activation is just religious entertainment. The question that will determine everything is this: when the path appears through your Red Sea, will you have the courage to walk it? Dear chosen one, I need you to stop for a moment and think about something that might break your heart wide open. Look around your living room. Look at those family photos on the mantle. That wedding picture of your parents, that graduation photo of your children, that Christmas morning snapshot with your grandchildren. Now let me ask you something that's going to cut deeper than you expect. What legacy are you leaving them? Not your money, not your house, not your possessions. I'm talking about your spiritual inheritance. The generational blessings or curses that flow through bloodlines like rivers cutting through stone. Because here's the truth that most people never realize until it's too late. The 11th of August isn't just your door. When you walk through it, your children walk through with you. Your grandchildren step into freedom they never knew they needed. Your great-grandchildren inherit breakthrough they'll never have to fight for. But if you don't step through, if you let fear, doubt, or the voice that whispers you're too old keep you on this side of destiny, they stay trapped too. You see, there's something the enemy understands about generational authority that most believers never grasp. When God positions a senior saint at a doorway of destiny, it's not just about that individual. It's about an entire family tree. Exodus 20:6 declares that God shows loving kindness to thousands of generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Thousands of generations, beloved. That's your children's children stretching into eternity. Right now, your grown children are struggling with things they can't name. Your daughter battles anxiety she inherited through spiritual bloodlines. Your son carries anger he doesn't understand. Your grandchildren are growing up in a world that tells them they're worthless, purposeless, random accidents of biology. But what if I told you that on the 11th of August, when you step through that door of destiny, chains break? Not just on your life, but on theirs. What if your act of faith becomes their act of freedom? Think about Joshua at Jericho. When those walls fell down, it wasn't just about Joshua getting into the promised land. It was about an entire generation, men, women, children who had wandered in the wilderness, finally entering their inheritance. Your breakthrough is their breakthrough. Your victory is their victory. Your willingness to believe God in your golden years becomes the foundation they build their future on. I'm talking to the grandmother who raised children but always felt there was something more. You thought your season of impact was over when you retired, when your kids moved out, when your role shifted from provider to prayer warrior. But what if God has been preparing you for this moment all along? What if every tear you cried over your family, every night you stayed up interceding, every time you chose faith over fear, was building toward the 11th of August, the day your prayers get their answer in such a powerful way that your entire family line shifts? I'm speaking to the grandfather who built a career, but knew deep down he was called for something greater. You spent 40 years providing, protecting, working jobs that paid the bills but never fed your soul. And now you wonder if you missed God's plan for your life. But hear me clearly. What if your faithful provision was preparation? What if your consistency in the mundane was training for consistency in the miraculous? What if God was waiting until your children were grown, your responsibilities shifted, your calendar cleared so he could use you in ways that would shock everyone who thought you were just another senior citizen? The enemy wants you to believe your best years are behind you. He wants you convinced that the 11th of August is for someone younger, stronger, more qualified. But that's a lie from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah in the temple. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your experience isn't your disqualification, it's your equipment. Your scars aren't signs of failure, they're marks of endurance that prove you can handle what God is about to release. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart. Time is running out. Not your time, God's time. The harvest is ready, but the laborers are few. This generation needs what you carry. They need your wisdom. They need your prayers. They need to see that faith doesn't weaken with age, it strengthens. That hope doesn't diminish with time, it deepens. When you step through the 11th of August's door, you're not just entering blessing, you're dragging your bloodline into freedom. Every generational curse of poverty, sickness, depression, addiction that has haunted your family tree gets broken by your act of faith. Every spiritual door that was closed to previous generations swings wide open for the ones coming behind you. Picture this. Your grandson, 20 years from now, walking in authority he inherited from your obedience. Your granddaughter, operating in gifts that were activated the day you said yes to God's call on the 11th of August. Your great-grandchildren, born into a spiritual atmosphere of blessing because you chose faith over fear when it mattered most. This is bigger than you, beloved. This is generational. This is the moment your family story changes forever. If you're ready to stop living for yourself and start living for your legacy, if you're ready to step through the door that's been waiting for your footsteps, I need you to stand up right now. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. If you're at home watching this, stand to your feet as an act of crossing the threshold. Feel the weight of generations watching. Feel the expectation of heaven leaning in. Now type these 3 words in the comments. I'm stepping through. And here's your final assignment. Share this message with at least 3 people over 60. Don't let them miss their day. Don't let them stay trapped when freedom is one decision away, because the 11th of August is coming whether you're ready or not. The question is, will you walk through alone, or will you take your entire family line with you into the promises of God? Dear one, we've reached the moment where everything shifts. You're no longer watching from a distance, you're standing at the precipice of forever. Can you feel it? That electric tension in the air around you? That's not anxiety. That's the atmosphere of heaven pressing against the veil of your reality. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, you have 1 foot planted in your old life and 1 foot hovering over the threshold of the 11th of August. Behind that golden door, you can hear it, the hum of heaven's machinery, grinding into motion just for you. Gears that have been still for decades are suddenly spinning. Angels are taking their positions. Your breakthrough has been cleared for takeoff. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. Some of you are afraid to step through. After all this waiting, after all this believing, after all those midnight prayers when you cried out, God, when is it my turn? Now that the door is swinging open, you're frozen. Why? Because you've been disappointed before. Because that promotion never came. Because that healing seemed to slip through your fingers. Because people you trusted walked away when you needed them most. Your soul has been scarred by delays, and now when destiny knocks, you don't trust the sound. Listen to me carefully. In Joshua 3-5, when the Israelites stood at the Jordan River, Joshua didn't say, maybe tomorrow, or when we feel ready. He declared, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Tomorrow, not someday, not eventually, tomorrow. The 11th of August is your tomorrow, but you have to step, you have to move. You have to trust that the same God who parted waters for people who had never seen a miracle will part your circumstances for breakthrough you've never experienced. Some of you feel this in your bones right now. That trembling in your chest isn't nerves, that's destiny's draft blowing through the crack in the door. That restlessness you've carried for weeks isn't coincidence. It's your spirit responding to the frequency of fulfillment. Can you smell it? That sweet scent drifting from the other side. That's the oil of fresh anointing. That's the aroma of prayers finally being answered. That's the fragrance of purpose meeting its appointed hour. There's a warm breeze coming from behind that door, and it's carrying something you've been searching for your entire life, the feeling of finally being home. Not home to a place, but home to yourself. Home to the version of you that God dreamed of before you took your first breath. But beloved, you must understand something that will either liberate you or terrify you. This door won't stay open forever. Divine windows have divine timing. When Esther was called for such a time as this, that time wasn't flexible. It was now or never. When the angel told Mary she would conceive, she had to say yes in that moment. When Jesus called the disciples, they had to drop their nets immediately. The 11th of August is carrying the same urgency, the same divine impatience, the same, if not now, when. energy that has marked every major move of God throughout history. One step, and nothing will ever be the same. One step, and every closed door in your past will make sense. One step, and nothing will ever be the same. But here's where most people stumble. They want guarantees before they move. They want to see the entire staircase before they take the first step. They want a detailed blueprint of how their miracle will unfold. That's not how faith works. That's not how breakthrough operates. In 2 Corinthians 5-7, Paul reminds us we walk by faith, not by sight, not by logic, not by past experience, not by what makes sense to our limited understanding, by faith. Right now, I want you to do something that might feel foolish to your natural mind, but powerful to your spirit. I want you to physically step forward, not in your imagination, not symbolically. Literally stand up and take one step toward your screen, one step toward your destiny. Go ahead. Do it now. As you step, you're declaring something profound to the invisible realm. You're announcing that you're done waiting for perfect conditions. You're finished making excuses about your age, your resources, your past mistakes. You're saying yes to the impossible before you can see how it's possible. Some of you just felt something shift when you took that step. That's because the spiritual realm responds to prophetic actions. When you move your body in alignment with faith, you're creating a magnetic pull for your miracle. But I need to warn you about something. The moment you step across this threshold, everything familiar will feel different. The people who used to drain you will lose their power over you. The fears that used to paralyze you will seem suddenly small. The limitations that used to define you will dissolve like morning mist. This terrifies the enemy more than you know. Because once you cross over, once you step into the fullness of who you were created to be, there's no going back. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't unfeel what you're about to feel. The old you is dying right now. And birth is never comfortable. But what's being born through this process will astonish everyone who thought they knew your story. The scent is getting stronger, the light is getting brighter, the hum of heaven's machinery is becoming a roar. The 11th of August isn't just approaching, it's here, it's now, it's pulling you forward with a force you can't resist and shouldn't try to. The question that will determine your entire future hangs in the air like incense. Will you cross over, or will you spend the rest of your life wondering what was waiting on the other side? Dear one, as that golden door swings open on the 11th of August, you're not stepping into what you expected. You thought breakthrough would look like bright lights and celebration, but heaven operates differently than our limited understanding. Behind this door is a long sacred room, the walls. Oh, the walls are covered with frames. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. Each one holds a moment from your life. Every single moment. The victories and the heartbreaks, the triumphs and the tragedies, the moments that made you and the moments that almost broke you. But here's what will shock you to your core. Every tear you've cried, every lonely night you've endured, every betrayal that left you gasping for air. Heaven didn't erase them, it reframed them. Do you see what's happening here? God didn't delete your pain from the archives of eternity. He preserved it. He honored it. He turned your wounds into windows, your scars into sacred art. Walk with me down this hallway of remembrance. Here's the frame from when you were 7 years old, sitting alone at lunch while the other kids played together. You felt invisible then, didn't you? Forgotten. But look at the caption heaven wrote beneath it. Here I taught my chosen one to find me in the silence. Here's another frame. The night your spouse walked out. The night you thought your world was ending. The night you cried so hard you couldn't breathe. But heaven's caption reads, Here I broke my child's dependency on human love so they could receive divine love. Some frames still hurt to look at. I know they do. That frame from the doctor's office, that frame from the bankruptcy court, that frame from the funeral home. But now they're part of the gallery of a survivor. They're not your shame anymore. They're your strength. They're not your endings, they're your beginnings. The Bible tells us in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for good to them that love God. But you've wondered, haven't you? How could all things work for good when so many things felt like pure evil? How could betrayal work for good? How could abandonment serve a purpose? How could financial ruin be part of a divine plan? This room answers those questions. Every frame tells the story of how God was working even when you couldn't see it. Especially when you couldn't see it. Look closer at that frame from your darkest season, the season when you questioned everything, when you wondered if God even existed, when you felt like the whole universe had conspired against you. What does heaven's caption say? Here I removed everything my child was leaning on except me, so they would discover I am enough. You thought you were being punished, but you were being purified. You thought you were being abandoned, but you were being appointed. Every storm that tried to sink you was actually lifting you to a higher altitude. This is why the enemy fought so hard to keep you from this room. Because once you see your life through heaven's lens, once you understand that every chapter served a purpose, you stop being a victim and start being a victor. You stop asking, why me? And start declaring, try me. Isaiah 61:3 promises beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. But notice something profound. God doesn't throw away the ashes. He transforms them into beauty. The ashes of your past become the foundation of your future. That betrayal that shattered your trust, it taught you discernment. That business failure that left you broke, it broke your pride and built your reliance on God. That diagnosis that terrified you, it showed you that life is precious and every day is a gift. You're not the same person who entered those dark seasons. You emerged refined, strengthened, seasoned with wisdom that only comes from walking through fire and refusing to be consumed. But here's the mystery that will blow your mind. As you walk through this room of remembrance, you start to notice something extraordinary. The frames aren't just memories, they're prophecies. Every painful experience was actually preparation for someone you're going to help. Every wound you've healed from is medicine for someone still bleeding. That addiction you overcame, there's someone drowning in the same struggle who needs to hear your story. That depression you conquered, there's someone in that pit right now who needs to know there's a way out. That marriage you saved, there's a couple on the verge of divorce who needs your wisdom. Your pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your test wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to equip you to help others pass theirs. This is where God rewrites the captions under your life's pictures. What the enemy labeled as failure, heaven labels as training. What the world called your breakdown, God calls your breakthrough. What people saw as your ending, the Almighty orchestrated as your beginning. As we prepare to leave this sacred room and move toward the final revelation, I need you to understand something that will change how you see everything that's coming next. The very experiences that made you feel disqualified are actually what make you most qualified for what God is about to release through you. But the question burning in your spirit right now is this: if God can reframe your past so beautifully, what is He preparing to do with your future? But wait, chosen one. Here's where most people make the biggest mistake of their spiritual lives. They think the 11th of August is the destination. They think walking through that golden door is the finish line. They celebrate. They post about their breakthrough. They tell their friends how God finally showed up. And then they stop. Listen to me carefully. The 11th of August isn't your arrival. It's your invitation to go deeper. You see, when you step through that first door, you'll find yourself in a room unlike anything you've ever experienced. The atmosphere will be thick with possibility. The walls will shimmer with divine favor. You'll feel the weight of answered prayers settling on your shoulders like a royal robe. But dear one, that's when your real test begins. Because at the far end of that room, hidden behind the celebration, beyond the initial breakthrough, there's a second door, smaller, more intimate. And here's what will shock you to your core. It's carved with your name, not painted, not engraved, carved, like it's been waiting for you since before time began. Most believers never see this door. Why? Because they're too busy celebrating what they've received to notice what they're being called to give. They're so focused on their personal breakthrough that they miss their generational assignment. But you're not most believers, are you? Jesus himself spoke of this mystery in John 14:12. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater works than these. Greater works, not equal works, greater. That second door, that's where the greater works begin. Here's what religious leaders won't tell you because it terrifies them. The 11th of August is going to separate the blessed from the chosen. The blessed receive what they need for themselves, but the chosen receive what they need to change everyone around them. That second door doesn't open with faith alone. It opens with surrender. Complete, total, no turning back surrender of everything you thought your breakthrough was supposed to look like. Because on the other side of that door isn't your personal paradise, it's your divine assignment. And I need to be brutally honest with you right now. Many, and I mean many, will walk through the first door and stop. They'll say, God, this is enough. I'm grateful. I'm blessed. I don't need anything more. They'll settle for their miracle when God wanted to make them the miracle. Do you understand what you'd be walking away from? That second door carries generational authority. What you unlock there doesn't just change your life, it rewrites your family's DNA. It breaks chains that have held your bloodline captive for centuries. It establishes blessing patterns that will flow to your great-great-grandchildren you'll never meet. Moses had a choice at the burning bush. He could have taken the first blessing, freedom from Egypt's oppression, a quiet life in the wilderness. But Moses chose the second door. And because he didn't just escape slavery, he liberated an entire nation. Esther could have stayed hidden in the palace, enjoying her royal position. That was her first door. But when Mordecai challenged her with those immortal words, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" she chose the second door and saved her entire people from genocide. David could have been content as a shepherd boy who killed a giant. That was miraculous enough. That was his first door. But David chose the second door, the throne that would establish a kingdom lasting forever. What about you, chosen one? When the 11th of August opens that first door and you taste the sweetness of answered prayer, when you feel the relief of breakthrough washing over your weary soul, will you have the spiritual courage to keep walking? Because here's the terrifying truth. The second door requires everything the first door gave you. Every blessing becomes a tool. Every miracle becomes a responsibility. Every answered prayer becomes a platform to answer someone else's. That financial breakthrough coming your way? It's not just to pay your bills, it's to fund kingdom assignments you haven't even dreamed of yet. That health restoration manifesting in your body, it's not just so you can feel better, it's so you can serve longer, love deeper, and leave a legacy that outlasts your earthly years. But the second door comes with a warning label that most people never read. Once you walk through it, there's no going back to ordinary. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel the weight of the calling that will settle on your shoulders like liquid fire. This is why so many stop at the first door. The second door doesn't promise comfort, it promises purpose. It doesn't guarantee ease, it guarantees impact. It doesn't offer security, it offers significance that echoes through eternity. Right now, as these words pierce through whatever skepticism you've built around your heart, your spirit is making a choice. You're either feeling a stirring that says, "Yes, I want to go deeper," or you're feeling a fear that whispers, "Maybe the first door is enough." That stirring, that's the Holy Spirit confirming that you were born for the second door. That fear, that's every generational limitation trying to keep you from breaking the cycles that have defined your family for decades. The children of Israel had their first door moment at the Red Sea, miraculous deliverance from Egypt. But their second door was the Jordan River crossing into the Promised Land to become the nation God destined them to be. guess what? A whole generation chose to stay in the wilderness because they were afraid of what the second door would cost them. Don't let that be your story. If you're one of the rare few who won't settle for breakthrough when breakthrough is just the beginning, if you're ready to walk through the door that carries your name into a purpose, that carries your family's future type, I will go further in the comments right now, because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what waits behind that second door, and why everything in hell is working overtime to convince you that you're not qualified to enter it. You want to know why your life has felt like a war zone? Why every step forward seemed to come with 10 steps back? Why the very moment you started seeking God more deeply, hell itself seemed to mobilize against you? Listen to me, chosen one. The enemy doesn't waste artillery on the unarmed. Think about that for a moment. When a fortress comes under siege, do the attackers waste their most powerful weapons on empty buildings? Do generals deploy their fiercest battalions against vacant lots? Absolutely not. They reserve their most devastating assault for the strongholds carrying the most valuable cargo. You weren't under random attack, dear one. You were under strategic warfare. Every marriage that crumbled right when your faith grew stronger. Every job you lost just as you started tithing faithfully. Every friendship that turned toxic the moment you began walking in purpose. Every health crisis that hit when you were finally ready to serve God completely. That wasn't coincidence. That was recognition. Hell saw what heaven had deposited in you, and it panicked. The book of Daniel tells us that when Daniel purposed in his heart to seek God, the prince of Persia, a demonic principality, fought against him for 21 days. 21 days. Why? Because Daniel carried something that threatened the kingdom of darkness. His prayers were so powerful that they required angelic reinforcement to break through. You think your battles were brutal because you were doing something wrong. No, they were brutal because you were doing something right. The greater the cargo, the greater the storm. The greater the cargo, the greater the storm. The greater the cargo, the greater the storm. But here's what the enemy never told you while he was pounding on your door, circling like a vulture, positioning false friends to block your path. He was actually confirming your calling. Every attack was a receipt for the treasure you carry. Every storm was evidence of the breakthrough trying to manifest through you. Job understood this mystery. The Bible says in Job 1-8 that God himself pointed Job out to Satan. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. And what happened next? Everything Job owned was destroyed. His children were killed. His body was covered in boils. His wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of hidden sin. But here's the revelation that will change everything for you. Job wasn't being punished. He was being showcased. God was so confident in what he had built into Job's character that he allowed the ultimate stress test. And when the smoke cleared, Job didn't just survive, he thrived. The Bible says, God blessed Job's latter days more than his beginning. You've been living your own Job season, haven't you? The attacks were so relentless, so personal, so perfectly timed to hit your weakest moments. But what if I told you that every assault was actually heaven's way of proving to hell itself that you cannot be broken? What if I told you that while the enemy thought he was destroying you, God was actually displaying you as his masterpiece of resilience? The storms weren't meant to sink your ship, chosen one. They were meant to prove your ship was built for storms. Because on the 11th of August, when that destiny door swings open, you're going to need every ounce of strength, every layer of character, every spiritual muscle you've developed through warfare. You couldn't have handled what's coming in your former state. The person you were 5 years ago would have been crushed by the weight of the calling that's about to be activated. But the person you are now, the one who's been refined in fire, the one who's learned to worship in the middle of warfare, the one who still says, yet will I trust him when everything looks impossible, that person is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. This is why Jesus warned us in John 16:33. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. He didn't promise us a life without battles. He promised us victory through battles. He didn't guarantee smooth sailing. He guaranteed safe arrival. Every tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation has been recorded in eternal archives. Every time you wanted to quit but kept going anyway, that wasn't just survival. That was qualifying for something bigger than you could imagine. The vultures that circled your dreams weren't there to devour them. They were there because they could smell the life that was about to emerge. The false friends who abandoned you when you needed them most, they weren't strong enough to walk with you into your destiny. God was clearing your circle before He expanded your territory. You weren't under attack because you were weak. You were under attack because you were loaded with cargo the enemy feared would get through. And now, after years of proving that nothing can separate you from the love of God, after demonstrating that your foundation cannot be shaken, after showing heaven and hell that your yes to God is non-negotiable, now you're ready for the 11th of August. The door that's been waiting for you requires someone who's been battle-tested, someone who won't run when the pressure mounts, someone who knows how to stand when everything around them is shaking. That someone is you. But here's the question that will determine everything. Now that you understand why the battle was so brutal, are you ready to discover what you've been qualified to receive? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Right now, as I speak these words, God is placing something sacred into your weathered hands. Something that will change not just your story, but the stories of everyone around you. In one hand, He's placing a candle, small, intimate, flickering with the light of your personal healing. In the other hand, a lantern, bold, bright, burning with enough oil to illuminate the path for others who are stumbling through their darkest valleys. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me awake at night, praying for seniors across America. You've been holding that candle for 70, 80, maybe 90 years. You've watched it burn through seasons of grief, through nights when you buried your spouse, through mornings when you wondered if your children would ever call. That flame has survived everything hell threw at it. And yet, you think it's too dim to matter anymore. You think because your hands shake a little, because your voice isn't as strong, because the world seems to have moved on without you, you think your light is somehow less valuable. But God is looking at your candle right now and saying something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your age. This flame has been refined by fire. This light has been tested by time. This is exactly the kind of candle I need to light up a world that's lost in darkness. Jesus declared in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Not you were the light, not you might become the light. You are the light." Present tense. Right now, at your age, with your scars, with your story. But here's where it gets urgent, dear one. Here's where heaven starts demanding action instead of excuses. That lantern in your other hand, it's not just for show. It's not a retirement gift to sit on your shelf collecting dust. That lantern contains oil that's been pressed from decades of your faithfulness, your endurance, your refusal to quit when quitting would have been easier. And right now, there are people stumbling through darkness who will die spiritually if you don't lift that lantern high enough for them to see. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many nights have you sat in your living room, feeling invisible, feeling forgotten, feeling like your best days are behind you? How many times have you watched the news and thought, this world is going to hell, and there's nothing I can do about it? But what if you're wrong? What if you're dead wrong? What if the reason you're still here, still breathing, still fighting battles that should have broken lesser souls, is because heaven has been saving you for this moment? What if your candle and your lantern are the exact combination needed to pull someone back from the brink? I'm talking to the grandmother whose grandchildren don't visit anymore. I'm talking to the grandfather who sits alone at the dinner table, remembering when it was full of laughter. I'm talking to every senior citizen who has been convinced by this youth-obsessed culture that your time is over. Your time isn't over. Your assignment just got activated. Look at Caleb in Joshua 14:10-12. 85 years old, and listen to what he says. Now, as you can see, the Lord has kept me alive and well for 45 years since he made this promise. Today, I am 85 years old. I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me on that journey, and I can still travel and fight as well as I could then. So give me the hill country that the Lord promised me. Give me the hill country. At 85, while everyone else was talking about retirement, Caleb was talking about conquest. While others were looking backward, he was looking forward. That's the spirit of the lantern bearer, chosen one. But here's the devastating truth that's going to shake you to your core. While you've been sitting in silence, convinced you have nothing left to offer, someone within 5 miles of your house is contemplating suicide tonight. Someone is giving up on their marriage. Someone is losing their faith. Someone is making decisions that will destroy not just their life, but their children's lives. And you have the lantern that could light their way out. Your candle has burned through depression and you survived. Your flame has flickered through financial ruin and kept burning. Your light has dimmed through loss after loss after loss, and yet it never went out. That's not just personal victory, beloved. That's prophetic equipment. That's ministry qualification. That's exactly what someone else needs to see to believe they can make it through their own valley. Anna the prophetess understood this. Luke 2:37 tells us she was 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple, praying and fasting. The world probably thought she was just a sweet old lady who had nothing better to do. But when baby Jesus was presented at the temple, she was the first to recognize the Messiah and proclaim redemption to all who looked for it in Jerusalem. 84 years old, and she became the voice that announced the Savior to the world. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your authorization. So let me ask you the question that's going to determine whether the 11th of August becomes your legendary day or just another date on the calendar. Who is God calling you to carry your lantern to? Not someday. Not when you feel ready. This week, is it the neighbor who always looks sad when she gets her mail? Is it your own child who stopped calling because they think you wouldn't understand their struggles? Is it the person at the grocery store who always looks overwhelmed? Is it someone sitting in your own church who smiles on Sunday but carries burdens you can see in their eyes? Type their name in the comments. Or if you can't name them specifically, type "I see them" to let heaven know you're ready to be deployed. Because here's what happens when a senior saint finally picks up their lantern and starts walking toward someone in darkness. Miracles don't just happen. Miracles multiply. But the 11th of August won't wait forever, and the person you're called to reach may not survive much longer without your light. Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry 3 unshakable truths with you as you walk toward the 11th of August. First, that door we talked about, the one circled in red ink in heaven's archives. It's not just waiting for you to find it, it's actively seeking you out. Every delay you've endured, every rejection that stung, every moment you felt invisible, was actually God positioning you for this exact moment when your preparation meets his purpose. Second, remember the candle and the lantern. Your personal healing journey, that flickering flame that survived 70, 80, 90 years of storms, that's your candle. But the lantern? That's your calling to be the light that guides others out of their darkness. Both are burning bright in your hands right now, and the world desperately needs what you carry. And third, the 11th of August isn't just a date. It's a divine appointment where your faithfulness finally meets its reward, where your silence transforms into your testimony, where your waiting becomes your witnessing. But I need you to know something that settles deeper than knowledge, something that anchors in your bones. You are not walking this path alone. Even when the nights feel endless, even when doubt whispers lies about your worth, even when the road ahead seems uncertain, the God who called you before you took your first breath is still orchestrating every step of your journey. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. And beyond God's faithful presence, you have something beautiful right here in this community. Look at these comments. Feel these hearts connecting across the miles. You've found your tribe, dear one, thousands of fellow chosen ones who understand the weight of calling, who've walked through their own valleys, who are ready to stand with you in prayer and encouragement. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're family in the spirit. So let me ask you this final question, and let it echo in your heart long after this video ends. When the 11th of August arrives and that destiny door swings wide open, will you step through with courage, or will you spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been? Before I release you into your calling, join me in prayer. I want you to feel the weight of my hand on your shoulder as I speak these words over your life. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, I come before you, now carrying every precious soul who has watched this message. Lord, you see their hearts, the dreams they thought were buried, the hopes they thought were too late, the calling they thought had expired. But you know better, don't you, Father? I pray right now for divine strength to flood their weary bones. Where they feel too old, breathe fresh vision into their spirits. Where they feel forgotten, remind them that their names are engraved on your palms. Where they feel insignificant, reveal the magnitude of their assignment. Father, as the 11th of August approaches, I pray you would prepare their hearts to receive everything you've been storing up for them. Remove every obstacle of fear, doubt, and discouragement. Open doors that no man can shut. Bring divine connections that will accelerate their purpose. Give them supernatural boldness to pick up both their candle and their lantern and walk into the darkness to bring others home. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their relationships. Provide for their needs. Comfort their loneliness. Turn their mourning into joy, their ashes into beauty, their broken places into breakthroughs. And Father, let them feel your presence so strongly in the coming days that doubt has no place to land in their hearts. Let them wake each morning knowing they are loved, chosen, equipped, and never, ever alone. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer over their lives. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us how God spoke to your heart today. Share your testimony of His faithfulness. Ask us to pray for specific areas of your life. We will surround you with intercession. And please, name that one person you feel called to carry your lantern to this week. Your courage might be exactly what they need to find their way home. If this message stirred something deep in your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to remember they're not forgotten, they're not finished, and their greatest chapter might still be unwritten. Sometimes we're the angels God sends to remind others of their worth. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you today. Your faithfulness to watch until the end tells me everything I need to know about your character and your calling. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week, we're gathering here as a family of chosen ones, encouraging each other, praying together, and reminding one another that our God is still in the miracle business. Until the 11th of August arrives, walk in the certainty of who you are. Chosen, beloved, equipped, and absolutely essential to God's plan for this generation. Go in peace, dear one. Go in power. Go knowing that your story is far from over, it's just getting to the good part.